Rachelle Waterman is a 15-year-old girl with a wide variety of interests, from blogging to witchcraft. It's summer when Jason, Arrant, a 24-year-old, and Rachelle hook up, enjoying a brief fling. But after a couple of months, Jason ends things, leaving Rachelle craving more. Rachelle has also been intimate with Brian Radel earlier that summer, though it too fizzles out. Brian doesn't mind. He has been close friends with Jason for years. They are like brothers, with Brian always eager to do whatever Jason needs. For Rachelle, her time with Jason feels like true love, a deep connection she is desperate to rekindle. Jason hangs out with his friend Brian and several others, including Rachelle, at Brian's computer shop over the summer. Rachelle complains to Jason and Brian about her mom, Lauri. She tells them Lauri abuses her, that Lauri hits her, doesn't feed her enough, and even threw her violently down the stairs one day. Rachelle shares story after story depicting Lauri as cruel and aggressive. She says she's tried telling others about the abuse, but no one believes her, since on the outside, Lauri seems like such a respected community member. Rachelle confides that she feels trapped living with her mom, afraid for her safety but with nowhere to turn. Both Jason and Brian listen sympathetically. To them, it seems clear Rachelle is suffering at the hands of her mom. Rachelle asks Jason to help with her mom. At first, they throw around the idea of emancipation, but when that is too difficult, they consider running away with Rachelle. However, that raises the issue of criminality, harboring a runaway child. So, Jason comes up with a better idea. He recruits Brian to help plan Lauri's demise, since he is willing to do anything for Jason. Over the next few months, Brian and Jason discuss different plans of demise: poisoning Lauri, shooting her while driving Rachelle to school, breaking her neck to look like an accident, and so many more. They finally decide on a plan. In November, Lauri will be home alone for the weekend while Rachelle is away at volleyball tournament. Brian will sneak in, force Lauri to drink alcohol. He'll put her body in the van and stage a drunk driving accident. After a long, eventful summer, fall hits and the boys are ironing out their final details to their plan. Brian and Jason prepare, getting duct tape, rope, and wine to force Lauri to drink. Brian shaves off all of his body hair, his legs, back, beard, stomach, everything. He doesn't want to leave any DNA evidence behind. Tonight is the night Jason drops Brian off near Lauri's house, then waits nearby. Brian quietly approaches the garage side of the home, dressed in black clothes with latex gloves on his hands. Finding an unlocked window, Brian removes the toolbox blocking his entry and climbs inside. There is no turning back now. He explores the silent house room by room. Reaching Lauri's upstairs bedroom, Brian carefully turns the doorknob, but she stirs at the sound. He catches a brief glimpse of her face before Lauri slams the door shut. Finally, he rushes in to find Lauri lying helpless and terrified on her bed. Brian forces a gag over her mouth as she begins sobbing, duct taping it in place. He binds her hands and feet with ruthless efficiency before searching for clothes. In the kitchen afterward, Brian removes Lauri's gag and hands her a wine glass, wanting her intoxicated. She obediently drinks the entire bottle as he coldly looks at her. Brian then escorts the stumbling, compliant woman out to her minivan, tying her wrists to the back seat. Glancing around one last time, he grabs the empty wine bottle and drives off into the night. Spotting his friend Jason's truck ahead, Brian flashes the minivan's lights. They continue on towards the predetermined area, one following the other. At the remote area, they silently get Lauri, bound and disoriented, out of the van. Forcing her to kneel on the ground, Brian takes a deep breath and violently jerks her head back. This does not give the desired outcome, so he continued jerking her neck half a dozen times. Now with bruises, swelling, and other visible injuries that the boys did not anticipate, they need to cover up what they have done. Brian wraps up Lauri's body and carries her to the van. He meets up with Jason and they drive far away to an abandoned logging road. They pour gas on Lauri and the van, lighting it on fire, then leave the burning van with Lauri's body inside down an embankment. On their way back, they burn the evidence: rope, duct tape, Brian's hair. No one knows yet what happened to Lauri. The next morning, Sunday, hunters are out in the woods near an abandoned logging road. A man sees smoke rising and goes to investigate. He's shocked to find a burning van crashed down an embankment. Peering inside, he sees a charred body curled up on the floor. The man calls his mom, who contacts the state troopers. Soon troopers arrive at the scene. The van is melted and mangled from the intense fire. They examine the body, immediately suspicious since the body is in the back, not the driver's seat. He calls for backup, realizing this could be criminal, not just an accident. When the medical examiners run the VIN, they confirm it's Lauri Waterman's van. With the van identified and the small town gossip, the troopers remember Lauri had friction with her daughter Rachelle and Rachelle's older boyfriend Jason. They know Rachelle and Jason recently broke up after Lauri objected. When police find Jason, his long hair and beard are completely shaved off. Investigating Lauri's house, police find signs of a break-in and struggle. Fibers from an old rope are scattered around. A piece of rubber glove, likely the intruder's, sits in the bedroom. The evidence points to foul play, not an accidental disappearance. Interviewing Rachelle provides few answers. She lies about talking to Jason the night Lauri went missing. When confronted, Rachelle admits she fabricated their alibi, already trying to protect those involved. Pressed further, Jason finally confesses Brian committed the crime, claiming he just helped dispose of the body. Jason makes a deal with the authorities and agrees to wear a wire. He gets Brian to admit they were both present for Lauri's death. Soon the full shocking story comes out. With the confession, the police visit all the crime scenes. Lauri's blood is found in the van and on the flashlight used to bludgeon her. Brian's boot print matches an impression left at Lauri's house. The physical evidence backs up the horrifying account. Rachelle maintains her mom abused her until police reveal Brian and Jason's statements. She then admits she exaggerated the abuse claims and asked Jason to kill Lauri so they could be together. Rachelle is arrested for conspiring her own mother's death. Brian and Jason immediately pled guilty to avoid trial. The three plotted for months, determined to kill Lauri so Jason and Rachelle's forbidden relationship could thrive unchecked. Instead, their cold-blooded conspiracy only brought tragedy and life sentences. Now let's take a look at the trial. With Brian and Jason's full confessions, the prosecution feels they have a strong case for murder charges, but without Rachelle's complete admission of guilt, proving her involvement presents challenges. The prosecution aims to show Rachelle was a willing co-conspirator who manipulated her boyfriend Jason into killing Lauri. To drive home the months of detailed planning by all three, the prosecution meticulously recreates the timeline. When the conspiring began, the different plots considered, the preparations like buying supplies and cutting Brian's hair. Painting a vivid picture of the brutal murder, the prosecution hopes the jury will be horrified at how Lauri was ambushed in her own home. The physical evidence like the glove tip, rope fibers, and blood prints put Brian and Jason at the scene. Lauri's DNA on the flashlight shows how she suffered. This shocking evidence should negate any claims that Rachelle tried to call off the murder. They hope to convince the jury that Rachelle was just as responsible as Brian and Jason for coldly plotting her own mother's brutal death.
Rachelle Waterman intended to promote or facilitate the murder of Lauri Waterman. You have her own statement to the troopers that she did ask him to kill her mother. You have Mr. Arrant's testimony that she approached him about her problem with her mother. He asked, "What do you want to have done?" She says, "Let's get rid of my mother." And then you have Mr. Radel saying that when Jason contacted him, he said that Ms. Waterman wanted to have her mother dead. So, Ms. Waterman agreed with Mr. Arrant or Mr. Radel or both to engage in or cause the murder of Lauri Waterman. She said she called off the first one, the hunting one, or the shooting incident. And the letters that Mr. Arrant typed up and we've shows that he was sending them to her, that they were discussing about what they were going to do after her mother was murdered. So the evidence shows that Ms. Waterman agreed to be involved in this.
The defense aims to show Rachelle was just a typical teenager who complained about her mom, but never intended her murder. They'll argue Rachelle's adult friends, Jason and Brian, took advantage of her venting to manipulate her. Rachelle will testify she tried calling off their plots and exaggerating abuse claims doesn't prove she wanted Lauri dead. No maps or diagrams of the house from her, no proof she knew the break-in method. Questioning police tactics, the defense suggests Jason falsely implicated Rachelle to save himself, with cops improperly pushing the vulnerable girl to confess during her lengthy interrogation. The defense will note Rachelle sounded scared, not calculating, in her voice-recorded admission. The defense's goal is instilling reasonable doubt Rachelle intended her mom's death. They'll say she made immature choices in relationships and statements, but never crossed the line into criminal conspiracy. Her weak teen will should mean acquittal, not life imprisonment.
The state wants to say, okay, Brian's testimony is a lot different. How? We listened to it. What did he say? He kept saying, you know what? I don't know anything about Rachelle's involvement. Everything that I heard was from Jason. Jason was telling me this. Jason was telling me that. So was Rachelle involved? That's what Jason said. So did Rachelle have anything to do? That's what Jason said. That's what Jason said. That's what Jason said. He said that then. He said that now. Part of it comes from our own choices that we made when we were that age. And all of us, when we were age 15 or 16 or 17, we had relationships that we look back now and say, oh, Lord, please don't let anybody ever know that I dated that person. Please don't ever let anybody know that I had sex with that person. We all do. Some of it's because they're a little bit funny. Some of it's because we look and say they didn't go anywhere. Some of it's because we look and say, you know what? That person is dangerous. We know that at 25, and we know that at 35, but we don't know that at 16. And so the state stands up and says, you know what? The fact that Rachelle is a teenager should not make any difference. Well, that's true. And that's not true. It's true in the sense that if Rachelle committed these crimes, it doesn't really matter under the law whether she's 16 or not. But it's not true in the sense that you have to gauge, was Rachelle being reasonable? Was she perceiving what's going on? You don't do that from a perspective of a 35-year-old. You do that from a perspective of a 16-year-old.
Brian now takes the stand. He describes his relationship with Rachelle and Jason. He was intimate with Rachelle in the past and considers Jason a blood brother. Brian says he will do anything for Jason. However, when he brought the idea to help Rachelle with her mother, Brian was initially hesitant. He told Jason he would only do something so extreme if there was physical abuse happening. With that, Jason told him, yes, Rachelle is being abused. Brian describes his past parental abuse he endured as a child and agrees to help his friend. He goes on to describe the botched murder attempts in chilling detail. He recalls waiting silently in the woods near the school, rifle drawn on the road Lauri would soon drive down. The plan was to shoot her in the instant she paused at a stop sign. Though the gun sat ready in his hand for hours, she never appeared. Brian outlines a slew of other schemes that they considered.
Jason says, hey, Rachelle says yes. And so you say, all right, let's start the plan. When were you looking for lakes?
Probably started in middle of the week. It was within a week. I mean, it was very soon that we got back together, and I ended up bringing up the boat idea, and that got nixed. So I brought up lakes, and he said he thought that would work. So we went looking for lakes.
Lakes here, would that be okay to put next?
Yeah.
All right. Now, you said that you were driving around looking for lakes.
Yeah. I knew of a place called Foot Lake.
Yeah.
That we trapped at when I was a kid, but I didn't have any clue without a map where it was. So I just started hunting back up roads and didn't find any lakes.
So, did Rachelle ever go out with you when you drove up looking for lakes?
No.
Did Rachelle ever give you names of lakes that might be a good place to hide a body?
No.
Did Rachelle ever make suggestions to you about ways to maybe get her mom on the boat?
No.
Did Rachelle ever make suggestions about how to get her mom into the tub?
No.
Brian suggests there are glaring holes in Jason's plans, proposing the police would easily trace the crime back to Rachelle. His arguments seem to barely penetrate Jason's rage-filled haze. Desperate, Brian says that he'll devise a better plot within days if Jason holds off. He recounts in court what the final plan was. The intent was to capture Lauri in her own home and take her to another location to stage a drunk driving accident.
What was the plan that you had set up for what you were going to do once you got inside the residence? What was your plan?
Find Lauri, tie her up, have her drink the wine, stick her in her van, and drive out to wherever Jason was.
And then what were you going to do? What was the plan after that?
Go out to, there's a steep drop off out the road that we'd found, and was going to kill Lauri, break her neck, try to make it look like whiplash, and drive the van or push the van over the edge.
Brian explains feeling worthless. He's in debt and living practically homeless on a broken boat. Brian was already contemplating taking his own life when offering himself up as Lauri's executioner. In his mind, better the cops punish him than lose Jason's valuable relationship. This bleak resignation at sacrificing himself for Jason's whims underscores Brian's psychological state.
So you tell Jason that you'll take over and handle this for him.
Yeah, that if I couldn't come up with anything else, within a week, I'd do it myself.
Why?
Because I thought I was expendable. I didn't have thoughts at that point. I was looking at getting sued. I still owe $60,000 or so.
For what?
Business crashed. Business partner didn't come through with money that he said that he was going to give me. I ended up investing everything I had. Contracts came due, and I couldn't pay them. I also couldn't pay for my shop, so I was getting sued for not paying the rent. Basically, I was living on a boat with no money. My power bill was already late. I didn't have food.
So
I felt my life wasn't worth very much, and if he was going to go ahead and do it, I'd rather I did it. I wasn't going to report him to the cops. I'll try to talk somebody out of something, but I don't trust the police. And I felt if he was going to go ahead and do it, I'd rather I went down for it than he would go down for it.
Brian emotionlessly describes in chilling detail how he harmed Lauri. He tells the courtroom step by step the actions he took that ultimately took Lauri's life. He starts with the moment he broke into the home and how he bound her, forced her to drink, and removed her from the house.
And when you entered the house, what did you do then when you got in on the ground floor?
I started checking out the house, went up a flight of stairs onto the next floor, looked around.
On the first floor, the ground floor, after you got in, what did you see in there?
I didn't really look around in that area. Okay. I just headed up.
Stairs?
Yeah. I stood at the door. I thought she'd seen me, so I figured she was probably calling the cops. Didn't hear any sirens, though, after a while. I probably stood there for about an hour and a half. Okay. Went up to the side of the bed, put a rag over Lauri's head to gag her.
When she was lying on the bed, was she lying on her back, stomach?
Face down.
Face down on her stomach. Okay. So when you put the cloth over her head, what happened then?
She woke up. I'd placed my elbow in the middle of her back so she couldn't move. She started to cry. I told her to put her hands behind her back. I bound her hands. I tied the back of the gag after she opened her mouth bound her feet. I took her down to the kitchen. I asked her to point out where her purse and her keys were. She pointed with her hands. Then I went and got a wine bottle. I took the gag off, undid her hands, asked her where the glasses were, wine glasses. She pointed it out, got a wine glass. And about that time is when I noticed that I think it was a pinky finger of my glove that I'd lost.
Okay. What did you do then?
I put another glove on, then gave the wine glass to Lauri, filled it up, told her to drink. She drank. I went and took her downstairs, told her that we're going down to the van. Went down there, had her get into the back of the van, laid down on the back row of the seats, facing back, sideways. And I took her hands and tied one end to her hands and one end to the like a handle that's on the back of the passenger side seat.
And how was she reacting to all this?
I don't know. It could have been anything, just terror or whatever. She just was doing it.
Brian now explains his gruesome physical interaction with Lauri once they arrived at the designated kill site. He recounts his many attempts at ending Lauri's life and how he was not successful at first. Brian thought it was going to be like the movies, a quick twist of the head. He describes every brutal beating he committed on Lauri.
Then the first time you tried to break her neck, were you standing behind her or in front of her or on the side of her?
Behind her.
Okay. And where on her head were your hands?
One at the back of her neck, one on her chin.
Okay. And then when you said you pulled her head back, did you jerk it back or were you pulling it steadily?
I tried to jerk, but I don't think, well.
I can't hear you.
I tried to jerk, but I don't think nothing happened.
Okay, so what'd you do then?
I tried to break her neck sideways.
And in what way? What do you mean by sideways?
Pushing on the chin, basically trying to use brute strength.
Okay. How far were you able to get her head around that way?
Somewhere in this area.
At least a 90 degrees over?
I think a little bit before that. I wasn't able to get, naturally, she was fighting by that time, so.
Okay. She was still restrained though?
Yes.
Okay. And so did you do that just once or how many times did you do that?
It was drawn out.
Okay. How long of a time?
A couple minutes.
Okay. And what'd you do then?
Laid her down on the ground. Jason handed me the flashlight that he had. Actually, I guess that didn't happen until a little later. Jason held her down for me. I karate chopped her in the throat.
With what?
The side of my hand.
Okay, which hand?
I think it was my left hand.
Okay. And which part of the hand did you use?
This part.
The bottom part of your hand?
Yeah.
Okay. And which part of the throat was it the front or the sides?
Here.
Okay. The front. And how many times did you try to karate chop her?
Couple times.
Okay. And what effect did it have?
I couldn't tell any at that point. I wasn't sure. I wasn't really sure how you were supposed to do that if you're going to kill somebody that way. So,
okay. So what'd you do then?
Jason had a flashlight. He handed it to me. I think I might have asked for it. I really wasn't paying. Well, he continued to hold her down, and I used the bottom of it, and I struck her repeatedly in the throat.
And was she struggling or doing anything at this time when you were hitting her?
I really
didn't pay attention. Didn't look.
I was doing my best not to look.
Okay.
She also, at that point, she did say something.
What was it? Could you make it out?
Said, "Can I ask a question?" But I think she was too delirious by that time to realize I would let her ask the question.
And did you answer?
I said, "What is it?" But she just kept repeating.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
So didn't say anything else then?
No, Jason said something, but I didn't say anything.
Do you remember what he said?
You won't ever effing hurt Rachelle again.
Okay. And what did you do then?
Me and Jason attempted to suffocate her.
And how did you do that?
By placing our hands over her mouth.
Who placed their hands on her?
I did. I think Jason did, but I'm not too sure on that. I wasn't paying much attention. I had to let go at one point to check her pulse.
And how long did you do that for?
Jason timed it. I think it was 4 minutes.
Okay. And after 4 minutes, what did you do?
It was taking a long time, so we took her, and she was still alive because I could hear her breathing, and stuck her in the van.
Brian recounts the change in plans due to the gruesome acts he just committed. He and Jason took Lauri to another location to dump her and the vehicle. They lit the minivan on fire and left. Brian explains that this was not the initial plan, but improvised since he was not successful at his first plan to make it look like drunk driving.
And you also told the troopers that by that time, when you put her in the van, she had stopped breathing.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I believe Jason said that, but no, she was rasping in the back of the van. I said that it took a little while, that eventually I stopped hearing her.
Breathing?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you put her in the van, where'd you put her in the van at?
Same place that I had before.
Okay. You didn't try to put her in the driver's seat? Well, why not?
I don't think I wanted to be looking at her.
Okay. Wasn't your plan to put her in the driver's seat and then probably push the vehicle over? So you're like,
well, yeah, but at that point, it was pretty obvious that it wasn't going to work.
Okay.
She was dirty. She was bruised. And it was just not going to look like an accident.
Okay. So when you stopped the car at that point, what did you do then?
I put it in park. I got out, went around to the other side, opened the door, checked Lauri's pulse. Jason had mentioned that he'd had some sort of medical training or something, so he checked her pulse too. There wasn't any pulse that either one of us could notice at that point.
Where did Mr. Arrant park his truck at?
There was another road that also was water barred that went up the hill a little bit.
Okay.
He parked down next to that.
All right. Then, so after the two of you checked to see if you could find a pulse and you didn't find one, what did you do then?
Started collecting all the stuff that I felt should be burned. Went and got the gas jug out of Jason's truck and poured it inside the minivan.
Okay.
And I'd taken the vehicle out of park and put it in neutral.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was down the hill, it rolled over the embankment.
Okay. So then what did you do?
I ran a trail of gasoline back up the hill. In the process, lost track of where the trail of gasoline was. It had been raining or snowing or something, so it was wet. So ended up, Jason had a roll of paper towel that he brought up, dipped that in a little bit of gasoline, lit it, and threw it down into the van.
Brian's testimony conjures alternating contempt and pity. To some, he will always be a monster for complying with Jason's twisted schemes. while others see him as yet another of Jason's prey, manipulated via violent coercion and trauma bonding since an impressionable age. Police interviews expose Brian lied at the time to protect Jason, still clinging to misplaced loyalty. Back then, Brian depicted himself as the sole murderous mastermind. Now the full ugly truth of Jason's intimate involvement comes to light under oath. Jason now takes the stand. He openly admits his role in plotting Lauri's murder, yet maintains it was solely to help the desperate girl he loved. He recounts Rachelle tearfully confiding details of her mother's relenting abuse, showing him bruises and scars. Though initially suggesting safer alternatives, Jason claims he reluctantly agreed to facilitate Lauri's death after Rachelle insisted it was her only hope of escape. According to Jason, he implored Brian to help with the proposed murder, as Jason lacked the capability to personally end a life. He depicts Brian as uniquely qualified for orchestrating violence thanks to his militaristic upbringing. Jason asserts he spearheaded none of the myriad strategies discussed, and the scenarios were all Brian's ideas. When asked about his and Rachelle's illegal relationship, Jason shows no shame until he has to read letters he wrote to her. He shamelessly details coercing the girl into sending him nude photos. The lawyer asks Jason to read a letter he wrote to Rachelle aloud for the courtroom. Initially, he rejects the idea of reading the letters aloud, but ultimately is forced to as he is on the stand. The intent of this was to reveal Jason may have been obsessed with Rachelle, and the relationship might not have been as mutual as it was initially described. Now there is reasonable plausibility that Jason took this upon himself and didn't rely on Rachelle to demand these crimes be committed.
That's what I've told the state. That's part of another letter, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Can you please read that paragraph? I'm sorry, can you read it out loud? The highlighted one.
I would prefer not to. You're certainly welcome to.
Sorry, what?
You're certainly welcome to read it, but I would prefer not to.
Go ahead.
I would actually read it.
And I guess I have my own little fears too. Afraid that you'll take matters into your own hands and be taken away from me. Afraid that you might just get tired of move on to someone else. Deep down in my heart, I know you wouldn't do that, baby. I really do. But like I said, I just feel lost without you. I want to hear what crazy and very stupid thing I did. I ended up parking my truck on the back side of the mall and decided to take a walk down the trail to your house. I circle around back and half climbed the steps to the back side, right where your window is. At least I think it's yours. That would have made things kind of awkward if it wasn't and I did what I was planning to do. My hand was about 2 inches from the glass before I stopped myself.
Despite Brian being the sole killer, Jason's testimony implicates him at nearly every turn. When painted as the puppet master, however, Jason attempts casting Brian as obsessed with Rachelle and inexplicably eager to kill. While no one contests, Jason introduced and nurtured within Rachelle the notion of filicide. He maintains having tried steering her towards safer alternatives like emancipation. Jason insists the girl consistently refused anything short of murder. He holds strong that his part in the crime was minimal and he would never be able to harm someone. The attorney questions Jason's moral compass and whether he is more upset about being accused of the crime or that he was in prison. Jason arrogantly chuckles at the attorney's stunt to trip him up and make him sound bad, despite the attorney's success.
And he tells you about all of these problems, and you admit that it bothers you that you're being accused of being involved in Lauri's death, right?
Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Does it bother you that you're accused of being involved in Lauri's death, or did it bother you that you were going to face the possibility of dying in prison? Prison?
Yes.
You didn't care about whether you killed her, did you?
Again, I did not kill her, and yes, I care.
Is this a funny subject?
No, it's not.
You're the one that's laughing. That's why I'm asking. Is this funny?
No, I'm just blown away by this. I don't know how many more times I can tell you that yes, I admit to this, that this was a fabrication. But telling me that I didn't care about her death is ludicrous.
You're the one that just sat when I just asked you, do you care about being involved in Lauri's death? Did it bother you that you were being accused of it? Or did it bother, or that you were thought to be involved with it? or that you might go to prison. You're the one that said that it bothered you that you might go to prison.
Yes.
I didn't put those words in your mouth. You were the one that said that, right?
Yes.
Because after all, you want to salvage what's left of your life.
Yes, I've mentioned that once or twice.
Jason is questioned about the details of the crime and what him and Brian did step by step. Jason makes it clear that his involvement was from a distance, other than the covering up of the crime. He continues to put all the blame on Brian and does not take any accountability for his role in passing along lies of abuse and his coercive nature towards his friend. He also tries to create a narrative of him being a victim because he had to witness such a horrific crime, as if he is traumatized from being put in such an unspeakable situation.
You said on your testimony earlier today that you didn't remember a number of things. Was that to cover yourself, just to make sure that you can say, hey, I didn't remember, if it shows that there's a problem?
No, I simply don't remember.
You simply don't remember. You kill a woman in cold blood.
I didn't kill her.
And you were standing right there.
Yes.
So you did not lay a hand on her at all? Is that what you say?
No, she was breathing.
Not when she was breathing?
No.
So is anybody that say different a liar?
In this case, yes.
You participate. How about that? You participate in the murder of a woman in cold blood, right? A woman that never did anything to you.
Correct.
A woman that by all accounts was a decent and kind person, and you don't remember details.
No. Witness something like that and tell me how much you remember about the little things.
Rachelle's interrogation is now played in court. The lead investigator presses Rachelle about her shifting accounts, seeking the truth amid endless lies. Rachelle admits downplaying her central role, hoping partial confessions might mitigate punishment. Yet officers remain unconvinced, seeing a manipulator deflecting blame, not a misguided accomplice. As one would expect, initially Rachelle denies any knowledge of her mother's planned demise. She doesn't point fingers at anyone and doesn't accept any responsibility. Rachelle keeps a calm demeanor and doesn't show any sadness regarding her mother, which one would expect from a teenager losing her mom and supposedly without prior warning. Initially, Rachelle describes her relationship with her mom as a typical mother-teen relationship. She recalls confiding in her mother and having great communication with her.
Give me a general description of her. What she had like. She's conservative.
Conservative in some areas. More, I would say conservative, say more old-fashioned.
Okay.
She has a very good temper. I hardly ever see her lose her temper. When she does, it's not very good. Oh, very well.
Okay.
She's usually pretty happy. She's very responsible. Probably most responsible people. She volunteers a lot.
How is she with you in terms of how's your relationship?
It's pretty good. I mean, we have our normal teenage mother-daughter stuff. She doesn't like my black fingernail polish and that kind of thing. But we have a good relationship. We talk actually a lot compared to what I know about my friends and their mothers.
Okay. So she's already confided in a lot.
Yeah, I do confide in her.
Does she confide in you for things?
Probably not as much as I do with her, but she does.
Rachelle outlines abuse that she claims she endured at the hands of her mom. She describes everything from the use of baseball bats to pushing her down the stairs. Allegedly, her mom tried to send her to a camp for overweight kids and controlled Rachelle's eating intake. This abuse was not confirmed by any other family members or friends. Everyone described Lauri as a loving mother. Rachelle recalls her mom not approving of her lifestyle and her friends she had, including her boyfriend.
She didn't like my colors and black fingernail polish. She didn't like the fact that I'm Wiccan. Wiccan.
What's that?
It's just a religion that we believe. It's kind of like hippie mixed with what you call magic.
Okay.
We believe the earth has spirits and perform spells and
Okay. So she's upset with you about this.
Yeah.
Okay. So how is she doing?
Angry, fight. I would fight, but she'd say you shouldn't do that. Lecture. And she hit me.
Explain then. Slap you across the face, kick you in the. She wanted when you
She's done different things. Once I was in her and she came in with a baseball bat on my legs. And she tried to push me down the stairs, but I found myself.
What else? She slapped you. Punched you.
Pushed me down more. Pushed me to
She would push her back.
do much and proud.
She would tell Jason, Brian, about it.
My brothers told me to help me choose a pizza.
You knew the details about it.
After Rachelle found out her mother was killed and the minivan was involved in the destruction of the evidence, her only reaction was that she was upset that she was not going to inherit the minivan, rather than being upset that she just lost her mother forever. The interrogators press her for hours until she finally admits that she knew that her words of concern regarding her mother's abuse would lead down the path of plotting her mom's demise. She acknowledges that she knew there were plans and that she did not try to stop them. She blames being distracted by her regional competition coming up as to why she didn't think to address any concerns for her mother's safety with her father or police.
Another incident occurred. I told them about it, and they were coming up with this plot.
What she did to you?
A lot of my black. I had also gotten a C in math. It's normal stuff,
Okay.
We don't like black.
Alright.
And so it just come up in conversation, yeah, my dad's going to be gone this weekend. So if we were going to do something like this, this is them. They were saying, so if we were going to do something, this would be an opportune time. And I'm kind of like, well, yeah, I suppose. That's when I didn't know if we were going to go to state or not. But of course, I only found out regionals weekend. After I found out I was going to state, I was really excited, and I told them, yeah, I'm going to state. Our team made it. And I didn't really say anything about the plan. I guess I was euphoric about winning regionals. I had an idea that it was going to happen.
Okay. Yeah. And?
I just had an idea. Nothing was confirmed to my knowledge, but I had an idea.
You believed it was going to happen?
Suspected.
It was going to happen.
Yes.
Throughout the trial, the key points of evidence that the jury is relying on is the testimony of Brian and Jason and Rachelle's interrogation video. Overall, these three accounts of what happened and who was involved in what aspects may not have been overly clear. There were moments that Rachelle seemed to have started the plans, but the boys carried them out, all while Rachelle may have known about her mother's impending demise and did nothing about it. The jury found these accounts difficult to decipher the lies from the truths, so they concluded with no final decision on Rachelle's guilt. The judge declares a mistrial.
Your message reads that we are unable to reach a decision on all counts. I'm fully aware that you have been deliberating for 7 days, not so much as leaving for lunch. But the law does require that I at least inquire as to whether there might be some chance of forward movement. And Mr. Rearson, do you feel that there's any potential of that further deliberations might be beneficial. And again, I don't want to know what's been going on in the course of your deliberations, but rather whether it does appear hopeless.
It's hopeless at this point. Not regards to numbers or quantity, but the proceeding of deliberation has come to the point where it's at an impasse. We cannot produce a unanimous vote with any further deliberation.
Rachelle files a motion for judgment of acquittal, arguing there is insufficient evidence to show she intended her mother's death. The judge denies the motion for judgment of acquittal, but she reconsiders her ruling on Rachelle's claim that her statement during the police interview was involuntary. The judge concludes that because the interview was the centerpiece of the grand jury case against Rachelle, the indictment must be dismissed. In the end, Rachelle is found guilty in a 2011 retrial of criminally neglect homicide for telling two men she had been dating that she wanted her mother dead, and then failing to warn her mother or alert authorities. She is sentenced to 3 years in prison. Rachelle is now out of prison and has moved on with her life. Let's now take a look at how these three friends got to a point of plotting such a horrific crime. First, we have Jason. Possessive love and pathological jealousy potentially fueled Jason's descent into ruthless scheming. His evident sense of entitlement regarding the significantly younger Rachelle, combined with a tendency towards violence, created an explosive danger when she pulled away. Rachelle was not as committed to Jason as he would have wanted. It was easier for Jason to blame her mom as the root cause than to accept that Rachelle just didn't want to be in a serious relationship with him. Additionally, Jason's lack of impulse control played a role, as boredom and frustration prompted reckless plots for Rachelle's affection. A lack of productive outlets for Jason's time and energy also facilitated his descent into depraved scheming. Meeting frequently to analyze logistics made disturbing homicidal fantasies seem tantalizingly real. Their detailed role-playing negated the finality of taking a life. Killing Lauri became a type of a game for Jason and Brian, a casual hobby requiring tactical decisions, not a person's existence. Now we have Brian. Trauma bonding offers insight into Brian's deep loyalty to Jason. Brian's abusive childhood likely left him craving male approval, which the charismatic Jason offered. Over years of friendship, Brian grew conditioned to Jason's coercion, numb to unethical requests. A sense of learned helplessness entrapped Brian further once murderous plans surfaced. Additionally, Brian's abusive childhood left him willing to sacrifice himself to protect Rachelle. Being frequently beaten by his extremist parents corrupted Brian's self-worth and ability to empathize. He desperately clung to the new friends who accepted him, like Jason. So when Jason claimed Rachelle's mother was violently abusing her, Brian felt compelled to act, considering his own life expendable. After helplessly enduring childhood injustice, Brian refused to stand by passively again if someone he cared for was suffering. He agreed to kill Lauri to save Rachelle from further harm, fully accepting whatever consequences awaited, even death. Finally, we have Rachelle. Her age itself is revealing. She had poor impulse control and underdeveloped empathy that could have impaired judgment around approving her mother's murder. As a teenager, Rachelle likely didn't fully understand the complete devastation and permanent loss of having her mom gone forever. Teenage brains often don't think much past the day-to-day problems and what they want right now. So Rachelle mainly focused on freeing herself from fights with her mom and her mom's rules, without realizing the huge empty space this would leave in her future. Reports also say Rachelle first lied about abuse just to get rid of a parent blocking her relationship with an adult boyfriend. With a schoolgirl crush on Jason threatened by her mom disapproving, Rachelle quickly made up bad stories about her mom, even though deep down she likely loved her mom very much. In blindly seeking freedom from her mom's normal limits, Rachelle casually suggested extreme ideas without grasping how horribly real things could get once two obsessed older men got involved. Her young age explains but does not excuse Rachelle lightly tossing out harmful concepts that spun wildly out of control. Lastly, the abuse Rachelle accused her mom of likely got her more attention and support from the older guys in her life, like Jason. She liked this interest, so she kept exaggerating more to keep them on her side, without seeing how her believable lies were pushing things toward violence. Also, Rachelle likely never thought Jason and Brian would go through with detailed plans to kill, which they came up with in private. Rachelle was left out of the secret murder schemes, and she was stuck to childish ideas that a scolding from her mom was the worst that could happen for her dramatic claims, not police investigating a killing. As always, this analysis is not intended to absolve the three friends of their horrific crimes. Do you think Rachelle should have been sentenced to more than 3 years? Or did she really not have much of a part in her mother's death? Do you think Jason was just the mastermind? Or did he physically partake in harming Lauri as well? Thank you for watching, and please remember to subscribe to the channel to receive automatic reminders of our weekly videos, which we premiere on Sundays, and to also be reminded of our weekday live streams where we cover full trials and true crime stories. Also, if you want early access to ad-free and uncensored versions of all Wicked videos, feel free to become a channel member. Thank you for watching, and join us next time when we explore the psychological maze of some of the most wicked people.